Think and Grow Rich, Chapter 1. The first chapter outlines the principle of desire. And no, it doesn't mean what do you want from the fridge. When you think the word desire, what do you think of?
Today, we're going to talk about the first chapter from the book, Think and Grow Rich, which is the first of the 13 principles outlined in the book, and one of the most foundational and important ones. So the first principle is desire. The book describes desire as the starting part of all achievement and the first step to riches. For desire, it talks about not just wishing and wanting, but how desiring your riches becomes a mindset and brings you persistence. Desire for riches is broken into 6 actions. 1. Fix your mind on the exact amount of riches you want. 2. Determine exactly what you will give in order to earn that money. 3. Establish a date for when you intend to have this money. 4. Create a definite plan for carrying out this desire. 5. Write a concise statement summarizing this plan. And 6. Read your statement twice a day, once when you wake up and once before you go to bed. I think one of the interesting insights this chapter gives is how different of times we live in today, for business and growing. We're no longer in the wild and woolly West where we can go out and explore new territories and new fronts and discover things that are, new lands that are rich in resources and minerals. Those times are no longer. We know where everything is for the most part, and that's just not an approach we can take. But it's still important to kind of capture that mindset and spirit, and that's what creates this desire for us. It also says to not let anyone scorn you of these dreams. I think that is especially true today, where putting yourself out there can be hard and judged, and trying to be great gets judged a lot because, so much is online and, anyone can say anything on the internet. So I agree it's very difficult, and it's something that anyone pursuing this, whether it's business, social media, YouTube, anything like that, it's something that has to be overcome. One of the stories I liked in the book was about, the author's boy who was born with some physical issues with his ears, which, limited his hearing. He basically was not going to be able to hear, doctors said. But he remained focused and dedicated to helping him hear. He would use things like, a phonograph, and he would put his mouth up against it, so the vibrations, so using, basically the foundations of bone conduction to start to develop, responses to it. Eventually got older, and they came up with a device that allowed him to fully hear using bone conduction. And, later his son actually went on to work for this company and help others with the same issues. So it was a really cool, full life story. I think that's a great message, that story, and it's one that resonates with me too. I have it's not significant, but I have a genetic condition that affects my joints. I have some minor limitations now, but when I was born, doctors weren't sure, how well I was going to develop and, be able to play sports, things like that. And I've always used that as motivation, and I still do today. I like to think I'm in pretty good shape. I'm a pretty good golfer now. While I had something that caused limitations, I try to use this as motivation to overcome it. I think it really instilled a good work ethic in me, kind of, a never give up sort of attitude. I remember growing up in basketball, I had a coach who gave me the nickname Dusty, because I was always diving and dirty and dusty when, if we had outdoor practice, because I was always the one, just going above and beyond, chasing the ball or doing whatever I could, to make the play, even in practice. So to sum up desire, I do think it's one of the foundations, right? You have to have something that you want, and I think it has to be meaningful for you, and it's a great foundation. Find what you like, find what you love. It's something that, should hopefully come natural to you. If you're struggling with, finding something, go out and try new things. I've tried YouTube before a little bit. It's one of those things where you don't know what you're going to be really good at, but you got to keep trying things. As long as you just keep trying to improve every day, I think eventually you'll get better and you'll find whatever that passion. So thank you for reading along and listening. Like I said, I'll be doing videos for each one of these. If you like this, like and subscribe. There's more coming. There's 13 principles, so there's a bunch of those videos. I'll also be doing all, videos along the way for, other stuff about financial literacy, investing, things like that. So I appreciate anyone's support.